Welcome back to another Mackem in the Middle podcast in partnership with Fan Hub Football. As always, we will be looking back at the previous game that Sunderland did play, which of course did end in a 1-0 defeat away to Burton last night, or on Tuesday night, depending when you are listening to this. And I'm joined by Dan and Kyle. And third game of the season yesterday, Dan. First defeat of the season. Burton had one shot on goal, scored it. Where do you start with that one?
It's typical, isn't it? My first game of the season that I go to, and we lose. Honestly, if you asked me, and I was on a podcast last night, I would have been absolutely raging. Not at the team, at the officials.
Yeah.
But the more I've thought about the game today, I watched the highlights. Lee Johnson, I thought, spoke very well last night in his post-match interview. I can't fault the team. It's just one of those games where the ball doesn't go in the back of the net. Nothing more we can do. We had all the link-up play, playing out from the back, switching the ball over to Callum Doyle seemed to be our route down their channel, and seemed to be getting quite a lot of success from that. I wouldn't take this one to heart, to be honest. We could say we got robbed in the 95th minute. It's the more I look at it, the harder it is to tell.
Yeah.
Like some will give it, some won't. So it's just the game. Stats wise, we absolutely battered them. It was so one-sided, but it's just one of those games where we just pick up, dust ourselves off, and just go again.
Yeah. And there were so many games last season, Kyle. Not just last season, the season before that, and even the season before that. You know, if we were to record a podcast after some of them games, we'd be saying like, "Oh, we were so shit. There was no tactics.
Right.
Never looked like scoring once. Get a new manager in, get new players in, etc., etc." But to not come away with a point at a minimum yesterday is rather unfortunate, given the way that we actually played throughout the game.
Right, and I think you mentioned it too, just saying, in seasons past, we'd all be fuming, not at the officials, not at anything like that, but just because the players didn't give a crap, quite frankly. But to see kind of the reaction, to see, even Lee Johnson after the game, like kind of on the pitch, in the officials' faces and stuff, like you want to see that as a manager, and especially as young players and stuff. But there's the old adage that you learn more in defeat than you do in victory, or even like a draw, for example.
Yeah.
So, hey, third game of the season, we were kind of riding high. This is just kind of a microcosm of what the season's going to be on whole, as a whole. So the undefeated season's off, darn. I guess we can settle for 45-1 instead.
Yeah.
But I think a lot to learn, and I think this will be hopefully one of those learning lessons and say, hey, you don't like this feeling, obviously. We don't like that feeling of defeat. Let's work towards not feeling this too often. So I'm not overly concerned.
Yeah. And you said it before, Dan. Obviously, the most important thing is, not to get carried away, not to start thinking the players aren't good enough, the manager's not good enough, we're not going up, etc., etc. It's one game, we lost, we move on, probably should have won, plenty of positives to take. But it is important that we get back on track on Saturday, we get a win against Wimbledon, hopefully keep a clean sheet, and make sure that this defeat doesn't turn into what last season's defeat turned into, which I think it was like 10 games without a win. It's important that we get it right straight away.
Yeah, 100%, because we can accept one defeat, but how we played, we shouldn't be accepting anymore, because we should have been at least 2, 3, 4 up in that first half. McGeady missed. The more I watch that McGeady miss back, the more frustrated I get. He is in acres of space. Did you see Adama Traore versus Leicester at the weekend? Yeah. Same thing. I don't know why he's going to chip that. He should have just placed it. And
or even around the keeper.
Yeah,
exactly. He's got the quality to do that. And that's the thing that's potentially could worry me, is that we've relied on McGeady so much in the last couple of seasons to get us out of League One. There is a time where he's going to slow down, where he's not going to be as effective, and we might see some more inconsistencies from him going through the season. So it's making sure that we've got either a player that to come in for him to replace him maybe towards the end of the season to really push on, or we have some youth talent that can really learn from McGeady, and we can't rely on him solely this year, which I think we saw last night, because that was a game he could have took by the scruff of his neck and changed something, but there was quite a few misplaced passes. There was some skills that he tried to take on that didn't work. The finish that he could have had just didn't happen. And I feel like even though it's one game, even though it's the start of the season, what is he pushing on 35?
And he might already be 35 now, to be fair.
Yeah,
He's getting on a bit.
35, exactly. So as much as I love him, and he pulled off an immaculate roulette last night,
he did,
there's just slight worries because Lyndon Gooch is another inconsistent player. He played well in the last 10 minutes yesterday, but for the majority of the game, a lot of what he wanted to do didn't work. So if we've got two inconsistent wingers, it could cause problems for the strike force. So I'm still very confident. I'm still very proud of the team because of how they played yesterday. Don't get me wrong, they played really well. Some of the best football I've seen from us, but it's just those little things that we need to iron out, and hopefully we can pull off something against Wimbledon. But looking at the table, you could argue the top 15 in that league can push for playoffs. So it's going to be another hard game. We definitely can't write off Wimbledon.
And I was going to mention it later on in the podcast, Kyle, but I suppose it leads on quite nicely to this now. And I think I mentioned it on Twitter as well after the game. And I did put in the tweet that it's going to cause the inevitable uproar, because it always does. But, I think we said after the Wigan game, potentially even after the... who do we play on Tuesday? Who do we play on Saturday? I forgot now.
MK Dons.
MK Dons,
sorry.
Just completely went out of my mind there. Obviously, we said after the Wigan game and after the MK Dons game, McGeady just hasn't really been excellent, I suppose, so far this season. Obviously, he got the goal against Wigan from the penalty spot. He didn't actually get the assist because obviously the keeper's caught it and dropped it against MK Dons. But he just hasn't been the same as what he was last season. And although he hasn't been playing particularly well, we've won our opening two games without too much of a contribution from him. And I know you said, I think it was after the Wigan game, you said it, that we could start using him from the bench, see how effective he is against tired defenders, tired legs. Do you think that should and could be the case on Saturday?
I think it should. I think timing would be right for it. He had knee injections in the offseason really not too long ago. So I think these first few games for Lee Johnson was like, hey, let's get him out there. Let's get those legs moving a little bit. And what will be interesting is McGeady's ego, right? And it comes with any great player is going to have the mentality that they want to be out there every single game. But there has to be the reality set in, and that's on the coach. That's on Lee Johnson to sit him down and say, hey, look, we gave you the contract extension as well. Like, you obviously are part of the plans here, but we have to manage the course of the season, because you can tell too, every team that plays us, when they look at our starting 11, they're going to focus on probably 2 or 3 players to start. But number one is almost likely going to be McGeady. That's the name that pops out every single time. So, and you can see it every time he touched the ball, somebody was on his back immediately, because while he used to be able to turn and still has the potential to do that, when a player is right next to him, or sometimes if that first touch is a little off, he's scrambling a little bit. So I think it would be good for everybody just to, let's have you come off the bench, because really his biggest impact outside of potentially scoring that goal early on, his biggest impact did come within the last 20 minutes. And, back when it was, balls against the wall really for Burton and stuff. So I wouldn't mind seeing him at all come on for those last 30 minutes, 25 minutes, and really just run at him, put someone out there like a Jack Diamond, or even, you brought in Broadhead, who's played a little bit of winger, or even Pritchard. I really love Pritchard. From everything I've seen, he just seems like we got to find a way to kind of work him in there. And you nailed it on the head. I think if we can find a way to kind of, manage McGeady mentally and physically, get him out there, maybe I think this Saturday against a team like Wimbledon, who, I mean, nothing's given, but that should be a game that we go out and attack. The biggest thing we can't let Burton beat us twice in the sense of, they beat us now, but we can't let that linger into this weekend. Wimbledon has to be one of those games where it's coming out early doors and we're up 2 to 3 nothing, but in the first half. Is that going to happen? Not likely, but I want to at least see that intent.
Yeah. We'll look at the team. They did start the game for Sunderland, and I think it was one change again. Lee Burge in goal, Winchester, Flanagan, Doyle and Sergan as back four. O'Nien back from what I think was an illness. He started in midfield. Elliot Embleton and Dan Neal alongside him. Gady Gooch and Stewart as a front three. And like I said, Dan, one change, O'Nien back into midfield. There was talk, obviously, Frederick Alves. He came in on loan from West Ham last week. There was talk about whether he would potentially start. Obviously, I don't know how much game time he's had recently. I don't know how up to match fitness he is, but he didn't start. Was that kind of the starting 11 you'd expected to see last night?
Yeah, definitely. It's probably our strongest 11. We missed Corey Evans definitely yesterday, who would have been able to like screen across that back four and really support out, because sometimes McGeady wasn't holding the runs back and leaving Dennis by himself, and that's sort of where you would maybe expect Corey Evans just to sweep in and sweep up, because it looked like Dennis was struggling that game. It wasn't a great game for him. But on paper and even performance-wise, there's nothing we have on the bench that could have really made us any stronger and given us a better opportunity to beat them. Frederick Alves, who in my opinion is a great signing, been quality through pre-season. I've got a couple of West Ham friends at work and they rate him highly. So it would have been nice to see him start maybe for Tom Flanagan, because although that was one of the better games I've seen from Flanagan, 100%, there were still times where on a throw-in or when they're playing it out from the back, you're sort of saying to yourself, anyone but him, because you know that either
every single time
he'll misplace a pass or he'll give the ball away, and then it's panic stations for the defense. But in my opinion, nothing more could be done. I think, like I said, it's the best we could have put out, and I just have to say I was really, really impressed. I thought he had a brilliant game. His vision, his ability to pass and break down the defenses from a one-touch pass, where he's just opened up his body and played it straight away. It's caused problems with the defense, letting Ross Stewart run through, letting Gady run through. Very, very impressed with him. Embleton, I thought, had a solid game as well. And I was a bit surprised to see him go off, but then Alex Pritchard came on, and I thought he changed the game. Maybe if you ask me on Saturday who I'd play, I would probably bring in Alex Pritchard, because what I saw yesterday, he changed the game for us in those last 20 minutes, in those last closing minutes. Even though we didn't score, he did everything he possibly could. And what a player he is for League One. And we just need him sitting behind Ross Stewart. We just need him to pivot in that cam position and just stay there. And I think we'll be fine. I think he'll really be a big player coming into the Christmas period and later parts of the season. Touch wood, he doesn't get injured.
Hopefully, there is always that possibility. But I think the thing is with Pritchard at the moment, I think it is just a case of getting a match fit before we start. Obviously, I think he's played. I'm not sure if he played all against Wigan, but I think obviously he came on against MK Dons. I think he played in the Cup and obviously featured for, I think, about 20-25 minutes last night. So whether he starts on Saturday, I suppose we'll see about that. But the game as a whole last night was, in a way, to me, similar to Wigan. Both sides creating chances, neither side taking the chances. Obviously, you look back at some of the Burton chances they had a good ball put in the box, 5 yards out, header put over the bar. And obviously, we'll get on to the Sunderland chances as well. And you look back at the McGeady chance, Kyle, the similar one that Ross Stewart had where he was through on goal, and just a very tame effort. You just can't help but look back and think, what more could we have done? Obviously, other than put the ball in the net.
Yeah, and that's really it. Sometimes when you have too much time, that's kind of your worst enemy. It's easier to make kind of that snap reaction and put it in the back of the net versus having 40 yards of pace or of space and overthinking it. And I think that's just what it is. And I really think it just boils down to those few plays, because if we had put those in the back of the net, we're up to maybe 2-0, possibly even 3, but let's say realistically 2-0. We're probably staring at another 2-1, right? And then everything as far as like how the changes and the subs were made, maybe I still think honestly some of the same subs would have been made, and everything kind of went as planned and things like that. And this was just one of those cases where it just didn't drop for us. But the thing I do enjoy seeing, especially with these subs, is that we're actually subbing on a different style of player to be able to change the game versus last season. It's subbing off Scowen for whoever, and it's the same player. You're just subbing in the same exact player, but. Yeah, I think this really boiled down to just those missed chances. We had that opportunity, and then I do agree with the Corey Evans take as well. I think especially, and I'm sure we'll get to it on their goal. I think if that was Corey Evans charging down that first ball immediately, instead of Luke 09, I think he would have made the tackle to break it up. But here we are. So.
Yeah, I think there's a big difference as well this season, Kyle. I know last season, if we kind of went 1-0 down, you'd be thinking, 1-1, maybe best case scenario. But when you've got Embleton on the pitch, you've got Dan Neal on the pitch, McGeady, you've got Pritchard on the bench. We've now got a lot of players capable of breaking a team down, whereas last season we just didn't have that at all, again, other than McGeady.
Yeah, and that's why I think it boils down to this, that I'm not too concerned. We haven't reached our final form yet, right? That's really what we're looking at, and the pieces are in place there, and like I said, the ability to attack even a deficit or even a draw or attack or defend a lead, we're so much more multifaceted than we are last season, and that is I know the recruitment's been this and that, and some people are still kind of up in arms in it, but you can't fault the signings that have been made, the players that have been brought in, because I think it lines up with the vision that we have and the style of play that we have. So it's just, hey, there's going to be growing pains along the way. We weren't going to go undefeated the whole season. This is one of those where it's early, it's on the road. You can afford to to sometimes drop a game like that. And I just think it's good. If we got beat 3-4-0, sure, then we'd have to ask some questions. But they had one shot on goal and they made it. We had 7 and we just didn't execute. So it's I'm not too concerned. I like that we have those different options now.
Yeah, and as Kyle said there, Dan, they did score with their only shot on target in the game. It was a good finish, great finish, to be honest. But like you say, you've got Evans in midfield there, who's very quick to 50-50 balls. We didn't really have that yesterday. And ultimately, I'm not sure, I haven't watched it back too many times, but the marking from the first 2 times that I've seen it did seem to be quite poor on the left-hand side.
Yeah, well, it just goes back to what I was saying. It was a bit of a weird goal because the ball came through and was it Tom Flanagan that it bounced off and it led to an absolute wonder strike.
Yeah, I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, so it's that left-hand side was causing us problems for the majority of the game. That's where Corey Evans would have played a massive role, because Dennis Kirkin, is it Kirkin or Churkin? I can't remember how
Churkin,
he said it. Churkin, that's it. Yeah, he was getting beaten every time that any of their players ran at him. There were times where I saw it that him and McGeady, their winger was attacking them, and they both turned the same direction. Both of them. So that left-hand side was going to cause us problems, and if there was a goal, it was coming from the left-hand side. And it was just a hell of a strike. There's nothing we can do about that one. It was just down to pure technique and ability. It's just a frustrating one, because if someone just took ownership of the ball as it was being played through, maybe being a bit more aware of where the ball was when it bounced off Tom Flanagan's leg, we could have dealt with it a bit better. But it's just one of those frustrating ones where in the moment, I guess the players don't really know what they're doing. Their body's telling them one thing, where the mind's telling them something different. But it was just a frustrating one. And to be fair, they almost scored another wonder strike as well, coming from the same side,
wasn't it?
where they cut inside and hit that apex. And if that shot went in, I think I would have applauded it, because that was just outrageous. But it was always from that left-hand side. So I think that's where someone needs to step up and guide Dennis through the games a bit more, maybe in training, guide him to positionally maybe, or not being as afraid of making a strong challenge or putting his body about.
Yeah.
Because if he was a bit stronger and wasn't afraid to throw himself at the ball or throw himself at the player and maybe not be scared to get hurt, then I think he'd grow into an amazing player, because there were signs as he was attacking that he was cutting a defense apart like it was nothing. But it's just as he was tracking back, as he was defending, that he could have done little bit more. I mean, it sounds like I'm being really harsh, but it's fine margins. It's fine margins. We know he's a quality player. We know Tottenham rated him. Jose Mourinho rated him. All these fans were fuming he left. He is a quality player. Just still needs to be a little bit of confidence put into him and get to grips with the club a bit more. And I think he'll be a cracking player. But it was written in the stars where the goal was coming from.
Yeah. And obviously, Kylie did get a yellow card quite early in the game. I think it was kind of like midway through the first half. And I suppose, he is, I think he's still, 18 years old, 19 years old? When you're on that yellow card, it's a second league game of the season. It is going to have that effect on you. You're going to be that little bit more cautious getting close to your man. Positionally, you're probably going to change the way you're kind of starting your defensive position. Obviously, if you're running back with the attacker in front of you, you foul them, chances are you're gone. So he kind of had to start kind of maybe like 2 yards further back than if he wasn't on a yellow card. And I think that did have a big impact on, the attacking threat that they did provide through our left-hand side, their right-hand side.
Yeah, and Burton was obviously aware of that. And we would expect the same thing if we were attacking somebody who had a yellow card on their back line. We're going to be attacking that player every single time. It's just that's because mentally they're just a little bit, and that comes with age, right? We have all been lauding Doyle, right? He's so young, he's just he's an absolute anomaly, right? As far as like his maturity and stuff. But with Sirkin, that's just more realistic of what a young player can be. We just have to hope you grow into that role a little bit more, and that's where we really needed, like we've mentioned it, the Corey Evans type of player, the one, or even Luke 09 there, because I believe the ball was played up, kind of bounced off McGeady, and then both Sirkin and 09 just kind of watched it, kind of is a 50-50, and no one.
I think Neal was there as well.
Right. Yeah. And I think you're right. And no one, that's where that hesitancy comes, where Luke 09's getting back to that midfield mentality, and Neal's young. Somebody like even, 09, what I really would have liked to see there is a really hard tackle. Even if you pick up a yellow card there, you don't have any yellow cards at that point, so you can take that upon yourself and say, hey, this could be bad. Let me just take this out now. I'll take the yellow card. He's smart enough to still be able to play without, getting another card. But that's really where we just missed that Lee Cattermole-esque, or even Grant Ledbetter would have been kind of there, just knowing immediately we got to break this up right now. And if it means coming in with the flying tackle, then we got to do what we got to do. So it's like I said, early in the season, this is what we expect for the young team. We wanted youth players. We're clamoring for more youth talent. This is just kind of the double-edged side of it. So,
well, obviously, we did make changes, as you'd expect when you are losing a game. Alex Pritchard came on. Who else came on? Broadhead came on. He looked quite lively when he came on. We'll get onto him as well a little bit later on. There's a few half chances. Pritchard forced a good save out of the keeper. There was, I think it was in the first half, Stewart forced a good save out of the keeper, but it just wasn't to be for Sunderland. 95th minute, though. I know Dan's already mentioned this a little bit at the start. I'll go to you for this again, Kyle. Gooch has the ball, left-hand side, ball into the box, Tom Flanagan heads in. I did think it was Ross Stewart at the time, and I think quite a few people.
I think a lot of people.
It was Tom Flanagan that put the ball in the net against his former club, and it was called for offside. It was a close one, and I've seen it back, and I've had some people use some horrendous screenshots of the offside where the ball's mid-flight, saying how is this offside?
Yeah.
But obviously, for those who should know but don't know, it is based on when the ball's played. And from what I've seen, obviously the pictures, the videos, they're all on an angle. It does look like he's a yard or two offside.
Right. And that's just part of the fan definition, is being irrational. Like, it is what it is. People are going to see different angles and break it down frame by frame with the terrible camera qualities that you see with like UFO sightings and stuff. Yeah. So it's just one of those things. And immediately when we're watching it with the one EFL camera, I'm watching it from home. Of course, I'm all excited and then a little pissed. But at the end of the day, what I liked seeing was that that the goal from them came, I think, at the 66th minute, and from then on we did produce some good opportunities. It wasn't like we just went strictly route one. Yeah, we did do a little bit of hoofball, but not as much as we did last season. So it was nice to see that we did start playing it from the back, and we at least generated those opportunities. Even the final opportunity that I would say on maybe 8 out of 10 other tries is a goal, because we're talking a margin of absolute inches. And the good ball by Gooch. We did everything we possibly could have, and it just didn't fall our way that day. So yeah, I mean, a lot of fan reaction on the internet, but that's what being a fan is all about, So it's just one of those things where we can maybe we'll have kind of karma or luck come back our way later in the season and have a marginal call go our way. But the side referee, it's like, that's just kind of a party pooper, I guess. Like, come on, like, let us celebrate. But I guess at the end of the day, sure, he made the right call. So it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, obviously it wasn't given, and I think people are still debating it now on Twitter, even nearly 24 hours after the game finished. But it did finish 1-0. As I say, there's still positive as a take. We'll get into the player ratings in a second, but likes of Dan Neal, again, very impressive. The Broadhead who came on didn't really have too much involvement, but the involvement that he did have looked promising. Obviously he's highly thought of at Everton. You've still got Dennis Serkin. He hasn't played too much football recently, so he's still not quite at match fitness. And obviously Frederick Alves as well will probably be involved in the next few games. But we're moving to player ratings. Start with Lee Burge. I don't think, well, he didn't have a save to make, so like the rule that I have, if he hasn't done anything wrong and hasn't done anything particularly good, 6 out of 10, Kyle.
Yeah, 6 out of 10, easy enough, I think. Nothing special.
Yeah. Dan, for you?
Yeah, I'd say I'd maybe push it to a 7, because there were quite a few times where Burton played the ball over the back of our defence, and it was Burge came rushing out and was able to deal with it, kick the ball away. So I'd maybe put it up to a 7 because of how we dealt with some mistakes that our back four made.
Yeah. And just on Lee Burge and the whole goalkeeper situation, I'm sure you saw it on Twitter.
Yeah.
Not obviously you don't know how reliable anything is until it's a done deal. That's with anything, even if it appears on Sky Sports or anything, which it hasn't yet. But obviously Victor Manone has been rumoured to be wanting to come back to Sunderland. A lot of fans have said, we do need a better number one. If you look back at some of the stats next season, obviously I don't have them on me or in front of me now, but in terms of points dropped, I'd imagine, you'd maybe have dropped 9, maybe 10 points last season from like a goalkeeping error. And I mean, it's an improvement on the championship season, I'd imagine. But is that an area that does need improvement in the team, Kyle?
You can't go wrong. Like, if you're bringing in a player of his caliber, you can't fault anybody for that. And I think sometimes with your starting goalkeeper, you want somebody kind of right behind him in the wings saying like, hey, like I'm, it's either if you're a goalie, you can handle that pressure, and Lee Burge can say, hey, I'm number one and I'm going to keep fighting and practicing hard to make sure I am number one. Or if he's not mentally strong, he can look behind him. Oh my gosh, like Vito Manone, like my days are numbered. So either way, even if it's just a rumor, I think putting that kind of just in Burge's mind to say, what kind of player are you? Are you going to step up and solidify your spot, or are you going to look behind your shoulder and say, oh gosh, like am I going to be replaced here? So hopefully he's the former, and he's going to say, hey, I'm going to make sure on Saturday those rumors are going to stop. But I mean, if we can bring him in, of course, bring him in. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
It will. Callum Winchester is still at right back at the moment. Obviously, still haven't brought anyone in to play in that position. Frederick Alves, don't think he's particularly natural at full back. I think he is quite a big build, good on the ball, but just getting up and down the wing, I don't think is his game. Again, rumours, Niall Huggins from Leeds, reportedly in talks with Sunderland. I think he does normally play at left back for Leeds, but he is right-footed. And I think I've seen a Leeds fan compare him to Spinazzola of Roma, or you might have seen him playing for Italy at the Euros as well. But moving on to the players that we do have, Callum Winchester, stayed at right back, and I think I said the same thing in the last two games. Just played some canny balls down the line, held his position well, didn't do anything wrong. So again, 6 out of 10, Kyle.
Yeah, a really smart player. I think that's what you saw. He was never really caught out of position. I think he communicated well. A few times, maybe I remember one little interchange down his side that kind of went through him and Gooch and a few players, and there's a few just kind of watch him, but that's just going to happen in the heat of the game sometimes. I think he's doing well, and his comments after the game basically saying, "I just want to play. I'll be out here and I'll make sure." He's going to give everything he has. You can't fault the player for that, and I don't think he made any mistakes to give him any extra fault. So 6 out of 10 again.
Yeah, done.
No, I agree with Carl. What he said, I thought he was pretty much comments were really impressive. He seems to understand the club. He wants to give everything for the club, and he said doesn't matter where he's playing, as long as he's playing. And yeah, everyone was skeptical about him when he came from Forest Green as well. So I'm really happy to see how well he's doing this season. But yeah, I give him a 6 out of 10. Very solid performance. Couldn't really do much more.
Indeed. Tom Flanagan started again at centre back against his former club, and there was a lot of balls into the box that he did head away. There was, as you will always expect, a few dodgy moments, but I don't think that was just down to Flanagan. I think kind of a lot of the defenders had them occasional kind of mistakes or misplaced passes or whatever it was. But ultimately, again, scored the equaliser that did get disallowed. But went with 7 for Flanagan, Kyle.
Yeah, I think what he lacks in maybe just looking athletic, I guess he makes up for in just trying. He just tries every single game. He tries very hard, and you can tell Johnson has kind of bestowed him as, hey, you're the captain of this back line, and he's always talking to the young guys and talking with Winchester. And so for the most part, I'm sure he's been organizing that back line. Maybe Burge has as well, but I don't see Burge as kind of that character to kind of be loud and commanding. So yeah, I think, if he would have scored that goal, put him up in 9s and 10s, right? But yeah, I think you can't fault him for the way he plays hard. He's organized for the most part, and he's made some crucial headers. I think 7's very fair. Borderline 8 if he had maybe done just a little bit more. But yeah, I'd say go with 7 again. I agree.
Yeah, done.
Yeah, I agree fully. Last night at the match, you could hear him bellowing. He was always shouting instructions. I thought that was one of the best games he's had. Because he can be prone to a mistake. We all know that. But yesterday, I didn't really see too much that was problematic. Obviously, maybe a misplaced pass or maybe a ball that's gone out of play. But great game for him, in my opinion. And like Kyle said, if he'd scored or if we'd won the match, that could have been an 8, 9 out of 10 performance from him. So I think giving him this leadership role was the right thing because he seems to have stepped up a little bit now.
Yeah. Alongside him was, again, Callum Doyle. And, majority of the game, he was composed on the ball, physical, made some important blocks and tackles, but again, similar to Flanagan and similar to Sirkin, who we will get onto. A couple of passes misplaced, a couple of, lost headers or whatever it was. But again, 7 out of 10 for me, Kyle.
Yeah, I think one thing I noticed is that he's still trying those same balls, which, hey, like he's putting them on the money. But the team, Burton, was absolutely set up for that. Every time that ball was sprayed out to the right or the left, they were out there immediately. And so it's going to be up to us to say, hey, like now let's maybe look to kind of shoot that a little bit more inside or find the gap or have somebody run in behind. Because if that right or left back is going to be running out immediately, like far to the sideline, that's going to leave a huge alley right there. So it's going to be on us to be able to look for that. That is one thing I noticed. Other than that, he's fairly anonymous, which is exactly what you want from a center back. It's just he just does his job. You never really think twice about it. So yeah, I'd say 6 just because I don't think he had as big of an impact on a game, just because those passes weren't going. But like I said, Burton absolutely was set up to watch for that. So not a whole lot you can do there.
Yeah, and Dan, for you on Callum Doyle?
Yeah, I'd probably say a 6. I agree with Carl. I don't think I've ever seen a team play the same ball so many times and give the ball away that many times. They played that diagonal ball. I can't even count how many times, and they lost it every single time, and yet they still tried it. So I don't know what the thinking was there, but yeah. The pass, all our play went down his side. The routine was Burge have the ball, give it to Flanagan, who'd switch it to Doyle, and then he'd drive it up. That's that's all it was all game. So, like Kyle said, anonymous. That's what you want a centre back to be. And yeah, 6 out of 10. He wasn't as influential as Flanagan.
Yeah. Dennis Serkin made up the back four second game since he did join the club, and as I mentioned, he isn't fully match fit yet. Still has a bit of work here and there to do. Obviously, there's still a lot of training to go in between now and the next few games. Yellow card did hinder him quite a lot and did hinder us quite a lot. And I think it probably could have been avoided as well. Obviously, I think he kind of got on the wrong side of his man. He's walked past him and just pulled his shirt and got the yellow card for it. Again, a couple of misplaced passes. But going forward, it kind of reminds me a lot of Denver Hume when he was fit, with the addition of actually having a right foot, which obviously will be very useful, because whenever Denver Hume got forward, you just knew he was going to go down the left side, get a ball in. But I think there was a few times, not just yesterday, but also against MK Dons, where Serkin was capable of cutting inside, playing the ball inside, or going outside, and it was quite effective at both. But ultimately, I don't think he had a terrible game, and again, didn't have a great game. So the bog standard 6 for me. Kyle?
Yeah, and growing pains, I think, is going to be kind of the theme for Serkin. But the one thing that I think is interesting and it kind of changes my mentality is that, unlike Doyle or even Alves or things like Serkin, he's our player for the next couple of years. So all that we have to really watch for is that growth, that continued growth and confidence. I was thinking about Flanagan is 2 or 3 seasons ago. Some of the comments I made toward Tom Flanagan probably aren't the best and won't be spoken on the podcast. But I mean, you see that growth and that confidence, and Flanagan's not a young player by any means, but that's all you can really hope for with Serkin, and his ceiling is much, much higher than someone like Tom Flanagan. But it's promising to see that these players, if we kind of get behind them and give them a chance, and he is our player, he's not going to be gone after the season. He can definitely grow into that role, and I think the Hume comparison is spot on. I think he brings us everything that Hume did, with the addition of that right foot, and I think he even had a chance. He kind of wiggled through, had a nice little interchange, I believe, with McGeady right outside the box, and I was just wanting him to rip it, and he kind of tried to place it through, and it's young player that's going to happen, but we get to now watch him grow, and so I can't be too critical on him. I think there's improvement for sure, but I mean, so is any 18, 19-year-old player. They're going to have improvement, and we just have to watch and hope for that growth. So I'd say 6. Yeah, I can't be too critical.
Yeah, and Dan, for you?
I'd probably knock it down 1. I'd probably give him a 5 out of 10. There were definitely parts he could do a lot better in yesterday. As he one-on-one battles he seemed to lose quite a few. He'd show one side and he'd just get cut open and they go into the other side. But he's only young; he'll learn from it. The yellow card, I've got to say, that was a shocking decision. Seen it happened right in front of me. I thought that was a shocking decision. It was just a battle, and for a first offence as well. I don't know how the ref gave a yellow card for that one, but I don't know if you saw it on the stream, but at the end, when he got subbed off, he walked around the whole stadium, came all the way to the Sunderland fans, and he was roaring the crowd up. He was like fist pumping, like trying to get the crowd going. So I think he understands what the club is, and he understands how great the fans were, because they were phenomenal last night. And yeah, he's got growing to do, as any young player does, and I think he'll definitely be one to watch out for, because once he gets that defending sorted, we will have a quality player. And I wouldn't be surprised they instigated a buyback clause, because they will want him back in a couple of years.
Yeah,
trust me.
Moving into midfield, Gunnayan, as I say, returned from an illness to come back straight into the start 11. And again, he's a player that some people love, some people hate, some people don't understand why he plays. I've always liked him, and I think he brings a lot of energy into midfield, which I think is very important, especially in the lower leagues. Even Championship level, League 1, League 2 level, having that energy in midfield can be very important. Some very important tackles, some good tracking back, and obviously he is a goal threat going forward usually. But I suppose it will take him a couple of games at least to get out of the habit of just hoofing over the pitch, because he played centre back for so long. But ultimately, again, didn't really do anything wrong, didn't do anything spectacular. think there's going to be a lot of these, actually. 6. Kyle.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think 09 flourishes in the role where he has Corey Evans behind him because he's kind of like the attack dog almost. He's just, hey, just go out there and just kind of cause havoc, play smart, obviously. And I think he had some good interchange play. The one downside I had is, his finishing or just, any of those efforts were just appalling. I mean,
Yeah.
But like I said, he's getting back into the role of things. It's it's a totally different mindset mentality to come from, right back to playing midfield. So I think he did what he could. I think, though, the goal does lay a little bit on him. I just want to see him be a little bit more aggressive. He did try to hold up the attacking player on their goal, but you got to be 100% committed and just say, I'm just going to foul the heck out of this guy or break it up in another way. That hesitancy is the only thing that I would knock him down for. So I'd be harsh to give him a 5, but I can't just keep agreeing and saying 6 with everybody. I'd say a 5, but only because I know that he can be much better.
Yeah. Dan, for you on Luke O'Neill?
Yeah, I'll probably say a 6 because he made quite a few great last-ditch challenges for us in the box or just outside. Yeah. He was that person who sort of, when we were in trouble, he in our 18-yard box, he was the one that made the tackle. He kicked the ball out for a throw, and he made those sliding tackles. He made some great tackles that I was very impressed to see. He had a great chance towards the end. He did all the hard work. I think it was with McGeady. He had a little 1-2 with, took it into the box, turned one defender with a sort of like a step over thing, and tried to curl it into the top left, and it just went miles wide. I think if he's going to be that centre mid, we need him to be, and he wants to be, because he definitely can be. He just needs to work on that finishing because he's a great box-to-box player. If you've got Corey Evans sort of screening the defence, and then you've got Neal or Embleton making the driving runs forward, you'll have Luke O'Neill as that box-to-box where he'll do both jobs, and I think he'll be a quality player. This season, it'll be someone who will really help us in the midfield, which is what we lacked last year. He just needs to work on his finishing. But yeah, I'd probably say 6.
Yeah. Elliot Embleton once again started. And again, some neat 1-2s. I think there was one in the first half where he kind of just took the ball off McGeady and tried to find a top corner from the edge of the box. Did go just over, but he does look a threat. Looks like he will score a few goals this season as well. But again, 6 for me, Kyle.
It just didn't come out for us this time. And like I said, I think he, in previous pods, he occupies a lot of the minds of the other team, which I think is exactly what you need in your attacking number 8. Is just somebody who's gonna take up that kind of mental space for the attacking or for the defending players to think, okay, where's Embleton? And that should hopefully, he's smart enough to get on the ball, make the right passes. Fairly anonymous, but a team, like I said, when they're looking at team sheets, they're going to say, okay, Aiden McGeady's probably number 1 who we got to stop. Embleton is very close to a number 2 as far as if we can try to shut him down, we can break up how they want to play. But he's been doing a good job so far. He continues to get better. It's been a joy to watch him, kind of step into this role. So, 6. I think he was close on a few, but just didn't have that cutting edge we needed.
Yeah, I think we need to eventually find a better way of rating players because there is a habit of just saying 6.
Yeah, and I, like I said, I think it's good. Like what I said with 09, it's one of those where we can see the ceiling is much higher, right? In previous seasons, a lot of these, this was a 7 or an 8 compared to what we're used to seeing. But I think we haven't even gotten to our potential yet. So maybe that's pretty normal to say, hey, here's a 6, but that's only because I know he can be much better. And, so yeah, I agree though. We'll figure something out.
Yeah. And Dan, are you joining us on the 6 for Embleton?
I'd probably say 7, to be honest, because I was really disappointed that he was the one that was brought off. I was hoping it would be Gooch or McGeady. But if there was anyone who looked promising or looked like he was going to do something, it was Embleton. He was cutting the defence open. He was making those driving runs. He was doing a little bits of skill, but not too much. He was picking the passes. I'm so glad we didn't sell him to Blackpool.
Definitely, yeah.
He's going to be absolutely crucial this season. And I think him and Pritchard if they play together. I think that'll be a force to be reckoned with in that midfield. It's going to be disgusting. And some of the scores we could see will be boys versus kids. Men versus boys, sorry. Yeah, men versus
I
boys.
suppose with the age of the team, it wouldn't be
Right.
a bad comparison, really.
That's true. Yeah.
But yeah, I think he was one of our better players yesterday, and I'd give him a 7.
Yeah, very good. Not joining the bandwagon yet. Moving on to not a 6, Dan Neal. And again, said it in previous podcasts. Just I'm really baffled why you didn't see him more last season. And again, I think I said it at the end of the MK Dons one. I think the only reason you didn't see him last season was down to the fact that the manager never really had time to train him. Well, not train with him. Didn't really get the chance to get the tactics kind of embedded in the way he plays. And to me, I think that's the only possible reason why he didn't play it, because you can see he has the ability. I think Leeds United wanted to sign him in the summer or potentially last summer. And you can see why, because every time he's on the ball, he rarely gives the ball away. He can turn. You haven't really seen it much yet, but he is capable of getting a good shot off, getting probably a couple of goals this season as well. And like I say, he is very young as well. So 8 out of 10 for me on Dan Neal. Maybe a high 8.
Yeah, I was gonna say, spoiler, he's probably my man of the match. Absolutely loved everything that he did. He does that thing where I really like that he runs every pass that's to him. He runs to the ball, right? He's always checking back to the ball, and he's able to open up the hips and let the ball run, and it gets defenders every single time because he's actually got the pace and the quickness to get back to the ball right after letting it run. So everything he did, I think, worked. He tracked back a lot. I think he even harassed a few attacking players and made some really nice interceptions, some nice tackles. But I really think ideally, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, if we had everyone healthy, assuming, I really do think our best 11 is Corey Evans, Dan Neal in the midfield, and I do think Luke O'Nien at right back. I just, the way I look at it, and I like seeing O'Nien in the midfield and things like that, but this is a great headache for Lee Johnson to have, and it's going to be on him as the manager to figure it out. But yeah, I think Dan Neal was absolutely excellent, very high. Maybe in comparison to the game, if he had a few more shots or like a few more attacking intents, I would say 9. But yeah, I'd say 8, and I really do think he was my man of the match.
Yeah, and Dan?
Yeah, I'd agree. He was my manager of the match, and the amazing thing is he was doing all the attacking bits from CDM. So what I'd love to see, a formation of a 4-2-3-1 with Luke O'Nien and Corey Evans sat in the CDM, and have Embleton, Dan Neal, and Alex Pritchard in the 3. I would love to see that. I think that would be disgusting because Dan Neal's got that attacking quality, and we saw that last night. His one-touch through balls, his one-touch passing, his vision, his, like Carl said, the ability to check back, look for the defenders that are pressing him and get out of the positions, run into the ball, trying to create something. I think if we had that 3 playing all together, that would be a dynamic trio. And I'd be so excited to see that. But man of the match, 8 out of 10. If we scored, if we'd won, maybe a 9 or 10, because what a performance it was from him.
Yeah. Moving on to another not 6, Aidan McGeady. Missed, I'm not entirely sure how early in the game it was, but I feel like it was probably about 15, 20 minutes in. Could be wrong on that. But, the ball over the top, their defenders went ahead it and missed it. And he's through on goal, no one near him. And I think Lee Johnson said, when you're running at 3/4 pace, which even for McGeady isn't particularly quick, but the point stands, trying to chip the goalkeeper while you're running at that speed from that distance is going to be difficult. He had so many options. He's a very good finisher. You can dribble it past him, go left, go right, put it underneath him, put it to the side of him. But you try to chip it, and when he did it, it looked quite pathetic. It wasn't a good attempt at all. And I think if you score that goal, Burton have to change the way they play. They have to change their setup. We have players capable of dictating the tempo, keeping the ball, frustrating the opponents, and then we can break, potentially get a second, get a third. If you score that goal, I think we're talking about a win here. Obviously, you don't know how the game's going to pan out. It could go anywhere, but I think that is possibly the kind of the I don't want to say the decisive moment, but in a way it was. And outside of that, just didn't really do much. So I went with a 5, Kyle.
Yeah, I agree. I think his biggest impact came very, very late in the game, where I imagine if we're thinking about it, Lee Johnson's definitely thinking about it and how to use him differently, how to bring him off the bench. And I think Aiden McGeady's biggest critic is probably himself, as most players are. You know, good players, they are very critical of themselves. And I think after that miss, he was very anonymous for the next 30, 35 minutes. And it wasn't until the end where we said, okay, we have to kick it in gear now. And that's where I think he did make some good passes and pulled the trigger on a few things. So I would like to see him come off the bench, and that doesn't mean indefinitely, but just maybe in this next game. I think we have the talent to beat Wimbledon and try something different. So I say I would like to see him come off the bench. I'd say a 5 as well. He just didn't. That's what we need him for. That's why we keep re-signing him every season. It's like we need him to make those goals or make those, convert those opportunities, and he didn't today. But that doesn't mean he won't ever do it again. So he obviously has the talent to pick us up another game. So he will recover from a 5.
We hope. Dan, for you?
Yeah, I'd say a 5. And the what makes his miss even worse was sitting behind the goal. We got a clear view of the miss, and the shot wasn't even going on target. It was the shot went off target, and the keeper saved it to make it go even more off target. So it was sad to see. But yeah, I think Carl said it. He has to be more of an impact off the bench, and that's where I think we'll start getting the best use out of him and let the young ones run the show for 60, 70 minutes, and then he can come on and give the final blow, the final knockout in round 10. 5 out of 10. It's quite a poor performance, but you could see that when Pritchard came on, that McGeady enjoyed playing with him. They had nice link up, and Pritchard looks like to be a younger McGeady with like 4 3-star steals, but those two linking up were really good, which pulls him up to a 5. Because if it wasn't for that, I'd probably say 4. So disappointing one, but we know he's better.
I think the thing is with McGeady as well, though, Kyle. He could have a 1 out of 10 performance, and he could lose the ball 9 times out of 10. But that 1 time out of 10 he doesn't, he could put it in the top corner from 30 yards and win you the game. And I think that is potentially the risky run of not playing him. And I suppose that would be the argument against it.
Yeah, and it's the test of the manager. I keep going back to that, but that is why Lee Johnson is brought in. He's the one who has to make the hard decisions. And I don't like to play side. Look at us. We're sitting in our offices or wherever right now, analyzing a professional football player in the team. It's on the coach to figure it out. So, and I don't like to try to make these philosophical statements about this and that, but Lee Johnson will figure it out. And if he doesn't, then get somebody in who can. But I have full faith in Johnson too, and McGeady to realize as well where he can best be played, and it might be off the bench. But regardless, having McGeady anywhere near the squad is typically a positive, unless he's harassing the youth, which I don't think is happening anymore. So he will be involved in everything we do moving forward. So I don't think he's concerned. I don't think I'm concerned either.
Yeah. Well, on the other side was Lyndon Gooch, and again, kind of similar to McGeady in the way that he's capable of a lot. You look at some of the goals he scored in this league. You go back to the goal that he got against MK Dons, I think it was last season, potentially the season before. He's got the ability, but he's also got the attitude that gets him frustrated easily. And again, you saw that yesterday. He loses the ball, gives away stupid fouls, chases the ball, and just tries too much at times. And it is so frustrating when he beats a man and comes back and beats him again and loses it, and then gets frustrated, gives away the foul. And it's almost like, if you put a £5 bet on that to happen in the course of a game, you'd probably lose money because it happens all the time. So I went with a 5 again for Gooch, and I think the fact that Gooch and McGeady stayed on the pitch, despite not having the best performance, didn't really offer too much to the team, screams to me that we do need to bring another winger in I don't think Jack Diamond's a natural replacement. I think he's more of someone that will come on and stretch the play. But I think you need to bring someone in to rival McGeady, rival Gooch for a starting spot that has the technical ability of those two, has the pace, has the ability to chip in with a few goals. And yeah, I'm going off on a tangent here. Lyndon Gooch, 5 out of 10, Kyle.
Yeah, no, it's he can definitely cause that. And I think his best play came in those kind of the last 15, 20 minutes when it was crunch time, because we don't have time to mess around with the ball and dip and dive multiple times. And what almost ended up being the game winning assist came because he put the man really on his on his butt, like right, and just went right past him. And first time, head down, put the ball in the box, and almost was a goal, right? So I would say with that, I'd still give him a 6 because I think he just tries very, very hard, which is good. And he's got the ability. It's just one of those things that kind of comes with repetition. It's just, I think he's watched McGeady play a lot, and he thinks like I can model my game after him, but Aiden McGeady is Aiden McGeady for a reason, and Lyndon Gooch is Lyndon Gooch. So I think Gooch just has to get back. Hey, it's very basic, but just beat your man, get the ball in the box, and the assists will start coming. So I agree, though, very frustrating, but I think he did enough to warrant a 6.
Yeah, and Dan?
Yeah, I'd say a 6 as well. It's really frustrating with Gooch. I love him so much. He's one of my favourite ever Sunderland players. I know that sounds a bit mind-blowing, but he really is. The really frustrating thing about him was for the first 60 minutes until they scored the goal, he was a one-trick pony. He'd run down that wing. He would try and cut inside and just do, I can't remember who it was last season where he put it into the top left. He cuts inside and tries to curl it in the top left every single time. And every time he got the ball, even if it was a through ball, he would run onto it, stop the ball, take another 5-6 touches, maybe cut inside, maybe go the other side, and then come back again, and then go down the line again, and just he faffs around with the ball too much. He takes too many touches.
He almost wants to make an easy decision look a lot more difficult than it has to be.
Exactly, and it was the opinion of all the Sunderland fans yesterday, because we did see moments of quality from him, especially in those when they scored the game. He changed players completely. He was making the driving runs. He was beating his man every single time. He would pick the ball up in the halfway line, just before the halfway line, and he would drive it down the wings. He would drive centrally. He would cause problems, which he needs to do all game and not just when we concede, because that Lyndon Gooch is a League One beater. He could be one of the best in the league if he continued to do that. But the first 60-minute Lyndon Gooch is someone you don't really want in your team because he makes it more difficult. And that's the really frustrating bit. And I do have to give a shout out to that Burton number 10. I don't know where he was playing, left back or left wing. I don't know what he was doing, but he made McGeady's life hard yesterday. He won everything. He was one of the best players for me of the whole game. He was probably man of the match. I think his name's like Lucas Atkins or something. Which is what Lyndon Gooch didn't face. Because I feel like if Lyndon Gooch faced Lucas Atkins in the first half, the first 60 minutes.
That's right. Yeah.
It could have been a lot worse because he could have given the ball away in dodgy positions. And you saw how dangerous Burton were on the counter-attack. They flooded the bodies forward, and that's where the goal came from as well. But I just want the last 30 minutes of Lyndon Gooch, I would love that in 90 minutes for the rest, every game to come. But we just know that's not going to happen.
Yeah. Well, moving on to the last player, Ross Stewart. And again, I think it was halfway through the game, I tweeted it. The fact that he's 6'5" and the way he controls the ball is just good to watch, I suppose is the best way of putting it. His first touch on his chest, on his left foot, on his right foot, on his head, whatever it was, first touch was always excellent. Just the only thing missing from yesterday's game was a goal. He had a couple of chances, obviously the one that was very similar to McGeady, 1-on-1. Don't even know what he tried that time. I don't know if he tried to lob it, if he tried to play it low, put it through his legs, I don't know. But no, it was straight at the keeper, straight into his hands, and very easy. I think there was the one where McGeady put a ball in the box and he got a toe on the end of it. The keeper saved it. I don't think you can really do too much of that. I think it's a case of just throw yourself at it. It might go in, it might go wide. You just don't know with them. But based on his all-round game, I've him at a 6 purely because he didn't get a goal when he probably should have. Kyle.
Yep, I think the encouraging thing is that he is finding himself in the right position, and he's running after balls. And like you said, his touch is incredible, especially with a lot of bodies around him. He's able to just kind of lay it off, and he occupies a large space. Not, I mean, physically, I guess, tall space, but he does because he's always on the mind of the defenders now. Unlike previous, I'm not going to even mention the name, previous forwards that we've have who are just kind of there like almost a magnet to their defender. He's always making their life miserable by moving forward, moving back, cutting in. So I love everything. He's going to continue to get better as well. And and I think it was interesting to see when Broadhead came on too. And I can't even describe what formation it was, to be honest. Maybe a 4-4-2. I don't know. But there was one where the ball was kind of lofted over, and I think he got a little bit of a head on it. And if not, then Broadhead might have been able to possess that and put it in. But it'll be interesting to see how we use them too, and how he hasn't been coming off as a sub much. So when we do need another attacking player, what that formation look like, what that dynamic looks like. But 6 out of 10. I love Ross Stewart. I love everything he's brought to the team. So
yeah. And Dan, for you?
I would maybe put him at a high 7, to be honest, because although he didn't get the goal, he is everything we wanted Charlie White to be. I'll say the name. He's everything we wanted him to be. Ross Stewart yesterday, I watched him throw himself with the ball. There were times he had 4 players stood around him and he still beat every single one of them to the ball. And not only beat them to the ball, he would also create something from it, whether it was with his shoulder, his head, his chest. He would get up for the ball and he would put it into a position where Embleton or Neal or McGeady or Gooch could run onto it. It wasn't where he might win the ball, but it just goes bounce straight back to them. I thought he was really good to watch yesterday, and I've just loved seeing that from such a big striker. He knows how to use his body. His touch is fantastic, and his ability to sort of hold the ball up and play the ball, sort of acting as like a centre forward rather than an out-and-out striker. I was really, really, really impressed with him. And look, the keeper made some great saves to deny Ross Stewart yesterday. He could have had a couple as well, and that chance as well that he missed, whether it was chip or we don't know. He had another one where he came into the box. He was quite free, and I don't know if he tried to cross it or he tried to curl it into the top left of the vert goal, and it went. It almost hit me in the stand. I'm not joking. It hit the person in front of me. But there's definitely a lot of quality in that, and I think he's got 2 from 2 already this season. Yesterday was just an unlucky one. I think he could get it. He could be at Clark Harris of Peterborough. This season. I really think he'll be something that we need, and I don't miss Charlie White one bit. I'm so happy we bought him for £500,000 because
great bit of recruiting.
If there's any credit I can give to the past owners, it's that purchase, because we even paid £4 million for Will Grigg, and we've got everything we need in a £500,000 striker from Scotland.
Without Will Grigg on the bench as well.
I'd love to see a feature on Stewart in this. I know we're already. You said we're just gonna be a shorter pod, and here we are an hour into it. But I would love to see if Ross Stewart plays like a player who everyone expected to be normal height, like he probably was the normal size growing up, like everybody else, and then out of nowhere just skyrocketed to a huge 6'5", and so he was able to develop that touch, that ability. You see it a lot in the NBA and basketball, and that's very typical of American to bring that up. But you see sometimes these guys who end up being 7 foot, but they have amazing ball handling skills and things like that, because just like everyone else, they were a point guard, they were a normal size, and then all of a sudden they sprouted up to 6'10", 6'11", and they never lost that ability. Ross Stewart reminds me of that, is that he worked on all the other footwork and then just happened to get lucky and sprout up like that. Maybe his parents were tall. I don't know. That's why I kind of want to see a nice in-depth feature on the Loch Ness Drogba.
No, there's quite a few nicknames from now, isn't there?
It's awesome. I love it.
It is kind of I was been trying to think of the word for the last 5 minutes. I can't think of it, but it is quite an easy question. That only has one answer. What is the word for that? A question that doesn't actually need answering. What's it called?
Hypothetical or rhetorical?
That's
Rhetorical.
something like that. Anyway, man of the match. Don't think we really need to debate this much. Dan, Neal, I think we're all in agreement with that one.
Yeah, definitely.
Love to see it.
And hopefully he starts again on Saturday, which we do play Wimbledon at home in the next game. And like I said right at the start, just a case of putting things right, making sure we take our chances. You know, we're going to create plenty of chances in every game that we play, providing that obviously players stay fit. I think Evans is still going to be missing. I think he's out from the 10 to 14 days. Whether any players come in between now and then, obviously, I'd love to see Minone lining up. Don't think he's going to happen by Saturday, if it does at all. Niall Huggins, supposedly in advanced talks, could potentially start at right back, which obviously frees up the role for Winchester in midfield, which again will be quite useful. Danny will move further forward, and we'll see. But predictions for that one, Kyle?
I would love to see, you know, a high scoring game from us, really, and coming out attacking, just knowing that maybe, you know, hopefully Johnson kind of instills that, like, oh, like we were robbed type of thing. That was, you know, like hopefully he kind of instills that in the players to say, now we have something to prove. Let's go out there. We're in front of our home fans again. A little bit of a road trip, two back-to-back road games. The fans are going to be ready for it, and it's got to be one of those games. It really does have to be a win. I know it's very early in the season. This is one of those games, has to be a win, because a draw or a loss, and all of a sudden you hear the streaky Johnson and things like that, and it's like, come on, we're 4 games in the season. But that's just like going back to fans being irrational, that fans are just irrational. So we got to see a win. I want to see a very convincing win as well. I'd say 3-0. I think Gooch gets on Embleton, and then let's go with Ross Stewart again. Let's reward the monster that is Ross Stewart.
Yeah, done.
I do have a gut feeling that it's gonna be a 3-1 to us.
Not a 2-1.
No, I think it'll be a 3-1. I think we've got more than enough to be able to put the goals past them. The only thing that scares me a little bit is that Wimbledon are actually unbeaten this season. Since the season started, even in the cup. They're unbeaten. They've won 1, drawn 2. But the bit of optimism I've got is yesterday's match they had against Gillingham. Gillingham went down to 10 men and still managed to concede and still managed to score against Wimbledon in the 97th minute. Maybe that's something that we can look at as a positive, that Wimbledon either can't keep the lead, should we go down, or if there's a big decision in the match that they sort of lose their heads and lose focus. So I think
Ross Stewart penalty win.
Yep.
Yeah, I think if we get a goal, the floodgates will open, but it will be a hard game against Wimbledon. They're not a team that we can just walk over.
Yeah,
and just think that it'll be an easy game, because it won't be. The results that they've had speak for themselves. They're not an easy team to beat.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm going to go with 4-0. Ross Stewart happening. But that is all we have time for after an hour and 10 minutes, which is probably the longest podcast we've done, despite it being meant to be the shortest one. But you can go off and just talk for ages about Sunderland in general. So, yeah, but I appreciate you both coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me again. Sorry if my American accent's getting a little hard on the ears, but I love talking about this club. It's been a lot of fun.
Once again, Sunday we will be back, probably Sunday night, to talk about the Wimbledon game.
That's all, folks.